So yeah, please explain the 3D, 4D, 5D,
Yeah.
and what each one is, what it's like to be within each one.
Yeah. So the 3D basically it's describing state of consciousness or state of being that we're in. To simplify it down, we've coined what we're in right now as most of humanity are in the state of 3D consciousness, or the third dimension of consciousness, and that of course is the state of consciousness prevalent in ego. The ego is prevalent and ubiquitous, and so that's that sense of separation from the source, and all the patterns of fear, of violence, of corruption, all the worst aspects, if we want to judge it, not worse absolutely, but none of us like those aspects of humanity. We see what's happening around the world, we wonder why it's happening. Well, really, it all comes back to that sense of ego and separation from the source, that manifests in all these patterns. And so we've been like that for thousands of years, haven't we? As the ego came in, the ego was the next step in our evolutionary journey. When the ego came about, this sense of self-awareness and yet still separate existence, seemingly so, that's where we entered into the third dimension. It's kind of like a phase. So perhaps, cavemen before it, without egos, they were more kind of like animals in the present moment, not really aware, but not really in friction with life, not really, just kind of going about it. But when we became aware, oh, I exist, and we developed the ego, but we hadn't remembered our divine origins, that's when we get stuck in the third dimension temporarily, where we're kind of resisting life, controlling life in fear, and that's where all these aspects of humanity arise. The good news is, in around 2012, I don't know if the date's exactly accurate, but very, very recently, we began starting the evolutionary process into the next level for humanity, and that's the fifth dimensional consciousness. I don't know why, again, it's called 5D, or why it wouldn't just go 3D to 4D. The 4D is described as the in-between phase. Yeah, the 4D is more of the in-between, as you're kind of somewhat in 3D and somewhat in 5D, and you're kind of going back between them. That's really all I see 4D. It's like a gateway phase. But 5D is where we remember, oh, I'm not just this separate being who should be afraid, who's living in this big, scary universe, and there's limited resources, and I'm powerless, and I'm basically afraid, and all these patterns coming out. But rather, we come to that space of healing, that awakening, that connection to that inner dimension within us, and we start remembering who we truly are, and that those true states of being start flooding into us, like what we've been talking about, that love, that joy, that peace, that goodness, that beauty. All of that starts shining into us, and it fills us with that knowledge beyond the level of mind of who we truly are. And as that happens, it fills us up, and it closes that sense of separation into a space of healing and alignment. And that's when we start entering more and more into the fifth dimension, where we remember, oh, we're actually one with everything. We're eternal, divine, spiritual beings. We can let go of fear. We can welcome in love. We are very powerful. We can create our realities. We can manifest things. We can enjoy life, and we can welcome in the source and the divine to kind of guide our life and move through us, and we can more surrender. So it's like we return back to being animals, but we also have the beauty of awareness of that process as well. So it's the best of both worlds. That's what the fifth dimension is about. I always say imagine being like a puppy dog. The fifth dimension is like being a puppy dog, but you're aware that you're a puppy dog. I mean, how good is that, right? It's
right.
like, I'm here, everything's amazing, I'm present, I'm alive, everything's divine, and I'm aware that's the case. That's what we're moving into in a more stable, permanent way, believe it or not. Now, having said that, it's going to take a fair while. I believe that if you're watching this video, you have an absolute potential to experience this amazing radiant state in this lifetime. Otherwise, you wouldn't be aware of this. You wouldn't have kind of manifested this information in. If you're watching this far in, a part of your soul's very interested in waking up to that, because, as I said, that magnet's pulling you into that next evolutionary part of your soul's journey. So it's a very exciting thing that can happen for many people in this lifetime. For all of humanity, I think it's going to take quite a while. Maybe
well, and I've heard you say 100 years, but I hope you're wrong.
I think, possibly. I mean, who knows? It could be a lot quicker, it could be slower. We don't really need to know, but It could be quite a while, quite a while longer, 100 years, few hundred years, who knows. But the beauty is that when you enter into that state, the whole state of the world from your point of view changes. And as I said, imagine a puppy dog seeing the world. A puppy dog doesn't see a big mess of a world that needs fixing and is overwhelmed with. It just sees life as it is. And so when you enter into that state, you don't need the world to catch up, because the way you see it is more through that lens of perfection, which is how the source sees life, because you're becoming more divine like that. Yeah.
And do you find that, because I found that sometimes people get, when you explain this state of being, because there are so many problems in the world, there's so much going on, that people say, well, that's just sticking your head in the sand because you're just worrying about you. I kind of, and I want to get your answer to that. Mine is always that when you're in a different state of consciousness, when you're in that kind of, whatever you want to call it, the shift, a higher state of consciousness, whatever you do is infused with that. So anything you do in that state is that much more powerful. When you're going it from the ego state, like if I'm angry and pissed off at the world and everything sucks and everybody's stupid, and I give money to something through that state, it carries an energy. But if I give money when I feel peaceful and calm and loving and kind and compassionate, when I give money, same organization, I'm giving the same money, it's infused with that energy. Do you see it that way?
Yes, yeah, definitely. The power of our intention and the state of being we're coming from reverberates out and has an impact. Absolutely. And that's why we're so powerful. What we intend to experience with our life, if we intend to experience more love, more joy, more peace, more abundance, all these things, we intend that will very, very highly likely become true. So when we also give and contribute to the world, which doesn't disappear when you enter in this state. In fact, it becomes even more there, because you actually what seems like sticking. I totally understand. It seems like you're living in a fairy tale world, sticking your head in the sand. I totally understand how it seems that way. It very much seems like that way, and because there is a lot of suffering, and we definitely want to solve that at a human level for sure. But I'd say it's actually you're taking your head out of the sand. You're taking your head out of the sand. That's what this is about. You're coming up into life, and you're actually much more able to help in a powerful way and contribute energetically with your actions, with your intentions, with your whole way of life, in the most powerful way when you enter into this higher state. So it's not like you kind of have this higher beautiful state and then just kind of leave the world. No, the impulse is to give, because you're starting to radiate love. You're becoming, I mean, that's what the source is. It's just the radiation of love, the giving of love, the being of love. When you become more and more attuned with that energy within you, you can't turn off the impulse to give and to help in any way you can, because that's all that ultimately the source is. It's just that love radiating out infinitely. So you actually allow that to come through you, and you do it in a more conscious way, and you still have absolute compassion for the human suffering in the world, and you want to help that because you recognize, and this is why I said it's good to honor the human in us all, because absolutely, even though you may feel love, joy, peace, and you're remembering these divine truths, and that's a beautiful thing, it's not like you see someone in the street and go, oh, they're in an illusion, just why can't they realize this, or I can just walk by them. And your heart goes out. You have wells of compassion, and you may give in that moment. You may feel inspired to give, or you may think of solutions to solve a certain problem, or whatever your soul is calling you to do. But you're constantly in that space of giving and more of a selfless way of life. So you don't lose the sense of suffering in the world or the problems of the world. You're able to see it from more integrated space and help in a more powerful conscious way that resonates with you. That's what I'd say is more of how it is.